Hey knitter, let's chat. Hello, my name is Erika. I'm a knitter from Brazil, and you're watching my knitting podcast. First, welcome to everyone that came along in the last few months. We had like 100 more people joining, so you are all welcome here. Feel at home, feel free to explore what is already in the channel and get cozy for today. It will be a journey. I would advise you to sit down, get your knitting project, your crochet project, your sewing project, maybe hear me in the background only, and maybe get your beverage, your cat, whatever you have to do to be cozy, because my idea for today's episode is I sit here, I pick through this huge pile of stuff I have to show you today, and I talk until it gets too long of a video, and then I cut and maybe I continue next week or something. If I can concentrate on it, I will be knitting on my cuff of this lovely sweater. And why don't we start with it, right? This is a whip. Currently it's the only whip in which I'm working. I have a few more, but this is the Billie Pullover by Sadie Nordland. And if you've been here in the channel before, you know that I started it in the beginning of the year, but I only had the very beginning of the neck shaping, establishing the pattern and joining in the round. And I picked it up 1 month ago, maybe now, or maybe some weeks, and I have been able to finish the raglan, and I'm finishing the sleeve. I spent the entire day yesterday relaxing. I gave this to myself as a present. I've been tired and I was able to finish it. I only have to finish the cuff, a few more centimeters here, and this one is done. I was knitting the sleeves first, as I used to do, due to yarn concerns. I didn't know that I will have enough yarn to finish it because it's cables, it takes a lot of yarn. And you can see it's a leftover of that project, you know. I bought a lot of yarn to join my temperature blanket. You can hear all about it in the channel if you're new here. I made it last year, and I got like 4 skins left over. And I just joined the second ball of yarn before I could split for the raglan. Oh, this is blowing so bad, but here you can see it better. The yarn is acrylic, it's Nina, a colorway crew, which means natural. And the colorway was basically what inspired me to knit a traditional cable style sweater, and this is in my Make 9 for this year, which I made some months ago. I will leave the post for you so you can see what is in there, but this is one of the items which I included there because I had already cast on this project. So I'm glad that I'm advancing in it. And as I said when I posted about this project in my Instagram, who would say that complex projects grow if you actually work on them, right? It was pretty easy for a cabled sweater. Of course, if you're just starting to knit, if you're getting acquainted with the purl and knit stitches and garment construction, maybe don't start with it. But if you're advanced beginner, adventurous beginner, intermediate, great project. The repeats quite easy to memorize, and if you actually knit on it every day, you won't forget it, and that's how it will move fastly. It's a short repeat. There are 3 kinds of cables here: the honeycomb cable here and in the arms, and then there is this longer cable here. One side of them twists to the left, another to the right here, right? And in the body you have them too here, and you have this, I think it's fishbone cable, which is very cute. You only have those in the front and the back, and it cables in the first row as this one, but not this one. This one is the reason why the chart is a little longer, but very, very easy, very intuitive. You keep doing it. It's a raglan construction. One of the reasons I chose this was because it was a top-down raglan because of my yarn concerns, but I think I will be fine. I am knitting size 2. I did not swatch for this one because if I knitted size 2 and I got a little bit off gauge, I will still fall within the margin of recommended ease for it. Unless I got very off gauge, but I'm knitting it on 4.5 millimeters and 4 millimeters for the ribbons. So I know more or less how is my gauge on these needles. So it fits. Basically it fits. And my intuition here was good because the pattern has instructions to increase to some number of stitches depending on your size. And then it says if you need more length in the yoke, you could continue knitting straight your repeats and then split. And when I finished it, I tried it out as instructed, and I noticed I needed like 2 more centimeters, and I knitted it here. This line is a lifeline in case I found it too tight, and decided to increase up to size 3, which was also something I counted on. The stitch counts of size 1 to 4 even have some similarities, so I could play between them just to get more ease. I considered increasing to size 3, but when I tried it on after finishing my extra 2 centimeters, I found out it was great. It's fitting very well. I'm steady with this one. I'm really enjoying working on it. The thickness of the yarn is that kind of project that flies off the needles, right? Even though all the cabling slow me down. This is how much I have in the ball of yarn that is attached to the arm, and I am finishing it already, and I have another attached here, and I have an extra one. I started a fresh ball of yarn here, so I think I'm cool with this, and I will be able to get as much length as I needed, as I want, rather, because that was my concern. That's why I always make the sleeves first, because you can have 2 things that are unmatched, but you can always crop the body a little bit. Not always, but often you can. But I think I will be able to make a full-length body even, which I don't know how much it will be, and that's also a good reason to knit top-down. I knit a lot bottom-up. I don't mind as much. Some people hate. Sometimes it makes a huge difference. Bottom-up raglans are a mess, but I don't mind so much knitting bottom-up, but knitting some top-down is refreshing for this possibility of being precise. Although sometimes it's also tedious, because you get the intriguing parts all done and gone, and then you have a lot of stuff to do later, but it's alright. This is moss stitch. I made some mistake with it, not here, in the beginning here when we are creating the moss stitch, right? Because moss stitch is one thing in US English and another thing in British English. And I don't know which one she uses in the pattern, but it's the one in which you knit 2 rows with knit over knit and purl over purl, and then you invert the thing. And I interpreted it as being seed stitch, which I think is moss stitch in British English, something like that, which in Portuguese is rice stitch. And that's what I was doing, and it was looking fine. But then I was looking at the other people projects, and something is wrong here. Then I read the description of the stitch in the pattern, and but I was able to change. It took me a little while, but I went stitch by stitch, dropped them, and picked them right in this little area here before I continued. And when I continued, I already continued it correctly. And that's what I have been working lately, and only that. I have 2 more whips to show you, and all the other things are finished objects. 3 more whips. I was mistaken. Well, one of them is just this. It's a crochet whip, and I could have finished it years ago. I cast on this in a whim, basically. And it's a panel of Jasmine stitch, you can see. Almost like a clutch here, the format. And that's what I intended it to be, a clutch. And this is t-shirt yarn, which I got in my sewing classes. I was taking sewing classes. I am not anymore. And there someday they had a couple skins of this t-shirt yarn, and the teacher gave us for us to take home. And I picked this one because I have a lot of things in green this year. This year I'm knitting green big time, and especially teal, petrol green, this kind of greens, cooler greens, you know, and blues. Here you can see, and there is my eglantine dress, which I knitted in April. And then there is a green top, another sewn green top. This is horrible, I should have ironed it. And there is this skirt, which is green and blue. I was wearing it today, but it's not very comfortable to sit like I'm sitting here. So I have a lot of green this year. And also even this top that I made for me and ended up going to my sister also, you know, very similar colors. So that's why I picked this one, and I thought, oh, I can combine an entire wardrobe of green this year. So I need a bag to go with it, and I love this stitch. I find it so pretty, and just started cast on, learn it from a tutorial by Lene Tøsti. And Marcelo Crochet, which is a Brazilian crocheter, very good teacher, and I learned from him how to make the stitch and just created a rectangle with rounded sides here for a clutch. And I was trying to just freehand the bag by crocheting more around here and turning, you know, in an entire block. And then I would maybe buy some wooden handles, because I love wooden handles, or some other kind of non-crocheted handles to bring it up in level a little bit and close it here, and it will be my clutch for elevating my looks. But you know, the thing with me and crochet is, if it's not ready in 3 days, I won't touch it for 3 months, you know. It will take me 3 months, 3 years, something like that. I think what I'm going to do now is to make another identical panel and then join them in the side, you know. Maybe I will search for some pattern or tutorial for reference, but I just didn't want to touch it. Not because I don't like crocheting, I like it, but I think I have over expectations about it being quick. When it's not quick enough, you know, sorry crocheters, but yeah, it's my casual fling crochet, not my one to love, which is knitting. Well, but I love this project. It's cute. It looks so cute. For a ragged yarn, you can see it's what they call fio de malha residual. It's not the premium t-shirt yarn. It's more like what is left over from the industry, you know, kind of recycled. It looks so, I don't know when, but I will pick this up and finish it and show you, and it will be so cute. I have plans for other bags. I won't talk to you about them today because, you know, yeah. Let's go to more whips. Yeah, well, this one I have shown you. There is a short in my channel about it, which is about this yarn, which is Brazilian vintage yarn, Amiga. It's acrylic, but I have decided to make a color work project with it. If you saw my short, I will leave the short here in the card, in the description. You'll see more about it there. And the pattern is this one. This is a 1990s, I found out. Precisely 1990s magazine. The stuff here is very cute. Maybe I will knit other things from here later. I really like 90s style. I think it has some of the oomph of the 8, but tone it down a little bit to be more sober, which I enjoy. See, this one, so cute. Let me stop showing this to you because you know how much time I spent blabbing over the vintage patterns and just showing stuff to you. Yeah, here is the pattern I'm going to make. So pretty. This is very easy. It's just 2 rectangles and trapeze shapes for the arms, and I have decided to convert it to knitting the round. There's only one thing here you don't see, but the back is plain. The back is plain. By the yarn amounts that they advise, it's white, and they only have the chart in the sleeves and front. Due to the amount of yarns I had, I decided to make it entirely the color work, not the plain back. So I have cast on the ribbon in a moment in which I needed plain knitting. I didn't have any plain knitting, and I cast on the ribbon. I knitted 9 centimeters of ribbon. I love a chunky ribbon. It's very squishy. The yarn is fraying a little bit, but I will hide the bits. It's probably older than me, this yarn, so to be expected, right? But I will hide those things, and it's quite soft for an acrylic yarn from back then. It took me almost an entire ball of yarn, this ribbon. Now I have to start the charts, but I won't do it now because I'm already working on this and other complex projects, but mostly the Billie. And this is the yarn. This is the colors I'm going to make. I am going to have the green be my white here because the white is the main color of this one. So the green will be my white, the beige will be my black because I get less black here. I swatched it. I didn't take a picture of the swatch because I swatched just this much and saw that the gauge was fine. Converting it to knit in the round, I removed 2 stitches here and here, here and here, 8 total, as you do. And well, it's waiting its time. I have one more width to show you, and it's also a little bit complex here. It's a gossamer style, Orenburg style highlighter shawl. You can see So lovely already. The stitch markers mark the sections of the chart, the repeats harder. I have like 19 rows of the chart here. Of the first chart, there are a lot of charts. This is named Expectation of Snow by Olga Radchuk. I hope I am pronouncing her name correctly. She's either Russian or Ukrainian from origin. Maybe she's American, but you know, her mother, in which she inspired the shawl, is Russian or Ukrainian. And it's very nice. It's a lovely, beautiful, not so hard if you have attention chart. I had to undo and redo rows a little bit already a couple times, but this is a long-term project. This is a special project for me. Won't talk much more about it, but that's it. And this is leftover yarn from my Avalon sweater. I will leave the link for it below. It's by Media Knitwear. In that project, I used it quadruple because it's very thin yarn. You can see here it's 100% wool. I have a lot of it, and I wanted to knit something that uses single layered. I think this is a 3.5 or 3.25 millimeters, and you can see it's a little gapy. The main stitch is garter, but it's garter lace, you know, and it's stunning. The end product is in the Piecework website. Piecework is a magazine which reproduces old, vintage, old crafts, you know, knitting, embroidery, many kinds of old crafts, and they talk about it. They make articles about it, and you can learn a lot of things on their website, and this pattern is there for free. I will leave the link below. They talk about knitting traditions around the world and all this kind of thing. It's a very interesting magazine. The website is also very interesting. And yeah, I was very excited knitting it. This is a bead that will you be able to see this? I don't think you will. Maybe the bead here. Oh, very tiny here, you know? Yeah, you can see maybe. This is translucent glass beads, 2 millimeter ones. We're advised to put it using 0.6, a very tiny crochet hook. It wasn't enough. It was the tiniest crochet hook I had, still broke this. So I'm using that little thing, a very little piece of plastic with a thin wire attached to it, like a diamond shape, and you pass it through the needle of a machine or a hand needle, and you put the thread in the other side and you pull it. This is the kind of thing that I'm using to insert the beads here. It was a very nice knitting experience for something so delicate and small, but I know it will take me a while because there is the entire shawl and then the border, and I'm just knitting some things that are thicker because we're having a very heavy winter here. So I'm not knitting on it, but I'm kind of willing to continue. But that's the kind of project that I have to sit at my computer table with the chart open and knit there in a time of silence, and I'm just not getting that free time of silence. And when I do get it, I'm using it for other projects. Well, I have some more knitting finished objects now. So let me show you. I will start with the others that are not in my body, and then I go to this one. I made a little dice bag for my boyfriend with his initials embroidered in duplicate stitch, and I lined it so it's 3 crafts there: embroidery, knitting, and sewing. And I used some golden thread as the closure. He makes some games there, and he likes dice. I gave him some place to store it a while back. And there are 2 that I do have here, which I finished in this meanwhile. This was a saga, but let me talk about the other one that was easier first this year. This skirt. I have a lot of tops from knitting and sweaters and vests, but I don't have many bottoms. So most of my sewing projects for myself have been bottoms, and I also have knitted some stuff which are bottoms, like my Eglantine dress. It's not properly a bottom, but a dress covers your top and bottom, right? And it can work as a skirt also. And then this, which is the Fast Skirt by Sigrid Marie Bloom, and it's also a free pattern. We have a lot of free patterns here, and which is not free except for the Billie, is from my books and magazines. So yeah, this is lovely skirt, and the yarn I used was Charme by Círculo, which is sport weight 100% mercerized cotton, and I made it with the leftovers of the yarn for my ranuncles. They are a set, you can see. I used it a couple times and they look so cool together. I will post a picture, and it was so easy to knit. Folks, what a good pattern. It's from Yarbo, and I don't know in how many sizes it comes. A few. I don't even have notes on this pattern. I just did exactly what she told in it, and it worked for me just perfectly. Well, in the pattern, there is elastic here, right? Elastic band. You start by casting on for the waistband, and then you knit a little bit, you purl one row, fold, knit them together to create the waistband. Oh, I will talk about this problem in a moment. And then you make short rows for a while to raise the back, and you follow a little more, and then you cast off and you pick up again the same amount of stitches you cast off, and then you increase with these decorative increases, which are lace. You create the lace, and in the same time you increase a lot the skirt, and it becomes swirly. And this part, it's a high waist, which is my preferred kind of stuff, and you can of course increase until you want, but I followed the measurements from the pattern because I think this kind of skirt looks better, especially in the set I was envisioning. It looks better a little shorter than just like from your knees down. Of course you can do what you want with modesty and stuff, but style wise I think it looked a little better, not very short, just some centimeters above your knee. And that's how it fits on me. It covers my bum perfectly, and then some. It covers my waist, it fits my waist very nicely, and since this is cropped, it looks so nice. And I wore it a couple times before I washed it, and then comes the problem. They were to the side waiting for me to wash them. I had just worn them once. It wasn't dirty really, but I had a lot of stuff to wash by hand, and I was waiting for a less wet day. We had a very rainy time, and I was waiting the rain to stop so I could wash my stuff. And then I decided to wash everything, and some things that could go in the washing machine, like cotton, I did put in the washing machine. And you know how they tell you, you can wash black and red together. Many of my clothes are dark clothes and red clothes, so I sometimes wash them together. And this, which is pink, but I sillily considered it's red enough, why don't I wash it with black dress? And that's what I did. And that's how I got these stains. This, and there is another large stain here, and where? Here. You can see it in the picture. Oh, that's so sad. I love this yarn because of its color. It's a little different from what I have in my wardrobe. As I said, I have a lot of green, a lot of blue, a lot of red. I have a few pinks, but this one is magenta. It was a special color from some years ago. Magenta was the Pantone color of the year. And it's a very nice color for dark winters. I think it complements my complexion, especially when I wear like red lipstick. This one is a little darker, but also nice. I really love this color, and now it's ruined. Especially the color is ruined. Immediately when I saw it, I searched for YouTube tutorials to remove the stain. I followed one, and it removed some of it, but it also made it more raggedy, you know, like leaving those, you know, a little dry. I don't know, it wasn't very good for the fabric, so I didn't want to do it again, like wash it 3 times in a row, you know. Washing your hand knits is a risky business as is. Of course, it's been cotton, you will have to wash it more often than you will wash like a vest that is not even touching my body, you know. And this is touching my body, so I would have to wash it a few times anyway, but not back to back, you know. And the result is I now have this, and I am not even thinking what I'm going to do with it, because I like my ranuncles, to be honest. I find it very cute. It is very favorited on Ravelry. It was favorite 21 times and helped some people because it's really cute. And I really enjoyed it. It was one of those knitting projects that flew by because it was in a moment I was knitting stockinette. I needed stockinette, I needed something very simple, and this is distraction enough, and it was quick enough, and all the rest was stockinette and in reasonably thick needles. So it was an enjoyable process. I was satisfied with the finished object and I ruined it right away. I was so sad about it, but you know, it is what it is. I might have to over-dye the entire thing, maybe try to save it, or I will rewash it and do something else, I don't know. But I decided I was going to pack it away and decide what I was going to do about it in the spring. Not now, because I just don't have the mind space for that. But I wanted to show you and recommend the pattern. It's very nice. And also it made me interested in trying out other patterns by that designer, and especially other patterns that are free from Yarbo, because there are so many, and there are some by, I think, Lene Tøsti, I think it's her name, also in sport weight, some cotton tank tops with some decor in the neckline, or there is one with leaf in textured across the chest, which I think would be very nice in this yarn, which is also a sport weight. So yeah, that's the nice and sad tale of my cotton set. What else? There is this one. Okay, I think I should get the book from which it is, so I can show the comparison to you. Just give me one moment. I'm back. So this top is this top. First, see it, keep it in mind, right? The hair, I'm always love about it, but you can see maybe the detail here. It's a pretty common 60s shell. Boat neck, here you can see the armholes are folded in as is or should be the neckline, and it's quite long, 50 something centimeters. It's from this book, Tricô para Suéteres, Pullovers e Casaquinhos. It's a Brazilian book, but the patterns inside it are not Brazilian. She used it to pick them from British, I think, mostly, and some American, some Australian magazines. But anyways, this is a book I bought a few months ago. That wasn't one of the patterns that attracted me when I first flipped through the book, but when I was inserting this pattern on Ravelry, I noticed that it recommended shiny yarn, and the thickness was about the same that I had in my stash. This one, which is sport weight yarn, and it's rayon. When I was approaching the armholes, I had to decide if I was going to insert short rows or not. In the end, I decided to try and do the short rows, and I did. And I think they improved the fit. I'm not even sure, but I think they did improve the fit a little bit. Have you ever knitted with 100% rayon? It sags like crazy, like crazy. So while it was good for the stitch, you can see it opens up the stitch. It's not a lace. This is a very weird stitch. You decrease and increase in the same stitch and you create some texture, you know, like it's pretty, to be honest, very pretty. Yeah, but it's not so good to keep shape. By the advice of my friend, I gave it a mid-project block, and not only that, I left it sitting to the side for a long while before I picked it up again, and it grew a lot. I had to undo the back a while, and then I started knitting in the round. The row in which I picked back to knit in the round, right now I can't find it, but it was noticeable when I finished it, because maybe I was in the flow and I know where the stitches should be leaning to, and in that specific row they look a little different. But right now, examining, since I forgot how it was, I can't find it. So I think this is good. But the nightmare of this yarn was it tangled so much. It almost made me crazy. I spent 2 days, 2 entire days untangling it. Before that, part of it I had spent other hours untangling while doing something, sitting beside my boyfriend. He helped me a little with some of the skin, and you know, I had to untangle almost the 2 entire skins I had from it. That alone made me think I probably will never knit with this yarn again, although I find it so stunningly beautiful. Maybe I will use it for crochet, maybe. And then I might try to follow the tips they have for you to avoid untangling, which although I tried to follow more or less in the second skin and didn't work. Let me try and show you this. So what is the back of this top? Oh, let me show you the inside. Since I had to still cut it a lot of times, because I wasn't able to completely untangle some parts. So I had to cut a lot of times and join yarn a lot of times, and then I had to hide the ends in a yarn that doesn't hide stuff, in a stitch that doesn't hide this. So you will see a lot of glued stuff, glued bits like this one. It's silicone glue, most of it. Some is school glue even, because this is paper yarn, so why not to use school glue? But this, like this here, and some others are paper glue. And the cast off is pretty nice. I just did a regular cast off because what else? You know, I think it needed structure. The cast on for the front, and that's why I decided it would be the front, is pretty nice. The cast on for the back, not so much, because it's like cabled cast on, something like that. And I didn't mind at first because I was going to sew it, turn it to the inside, but then I decided I wasn't going to do it because it would be bulky and it would be hard to sew in the stitch. What I wanted this for is for it to be like some sort of a chic third piece, or maybe something I will use with high-waisted pants or skirts and a bralette underneath. See, I wanted it to be boxy. I wanted to take advantage of the boxy shape of the original and have it just, you know, just skim through my curves and maybe be looser a little in the end, and that's what it is. The length I'm pretty comfortable with. You can see it just ends a little bit below, above my waist here. This is really my waist, and you can see it's chic, it's nice. I don't know if and when I'll wear it. After all, boxy tops are never my type, but you can see it doesn't look bad. It looks cute, but I hate it a little bit. Not because of how it looks, but because of the process of knitting it. The problem is not the pattern, the problem is the yarn. The pattern is pretty cool. If you have this book, which if you're in Brazil is very easy to get, there are some copies around, so you can get it and it will be very easy to get a nice project from it. You can even knit it with a yarn that is not 100% rayon but still has some shine. If you are fancier, you can knit it with pure silk, but if you're not, you can knit it with a mix, a blend, and it will probably be fine. If you are even the most beginner person ever, you can knit it as it is written, or you can convert. If you have just a little bit more experience, you can pretty much convert to do it as I did. Would I do it again? Maybe not, especially not with this yarn. Well, not a bad project, just irritating. Well, let me go to the last project I have to talk about, which is my vest. And it was much more of a satisfying project to knit, and I think we're going to call it even for today because there is a lot of footage already and I will have to talk about sewing in the other day. The story of this is very interesting. This is a Brazilian pattern in a Brazilian wool yarn. Let me show you the pattern first. The book is this one, Agulhas e Novelos, which is Needles and Skins by Lígia M. de Oliveira. And it's from 1947. There is a short showing this book, so I will leave the link below. You can see all the styles that you will find here. There is a lot of vests for men, a couple of things for kids, and in the end a few styles for women. And that's one of the only vests for women that we have here. Is pullover number 20 in this book, and this is the one. Not even in a model. You have a close-up of the stitch here, and this is the entire pattern. Most of it here is the stitch. The rest is the construction instructions, and it doesn't tell me how many stitches to cast on. Most of them tell you how many stitches to cast on, but of course they only work for one size, and they say that it's size medium according to their own, from that time, measurements. And they say that to get the best size for you, you should draft a sewing pattern and knit your knitting pattern pieces to those dimensions. So you have to do the calculations and everything and adapt their bare bones recipes to that. Sometimes it's annoying, but not this time. It actually served me very well because I had only 5 skins of this, but I still have one. I only used 4 in this one. This is a Brazilian wool yarn named Matriz from Lanifícios, Uruguay, which my friend Giovanna sent me. When I got the yarn, I knew I had to find a Brazilian pattern for that. When I flipped through my magazines, and books, most of them had stitch counts and designs that were very specific for thinner yarn. So this and the other one that I found, I would have to still modify a little bit. I decided to go with this one because I wanted it close, to be honest. The other one was buttoned. I didn't want to fuss with that, especially because I already planned to modify it to knit it in the round, which I did. I knitted it in the round from bottom up to here. Another modification I always do for vests is to leave the stitches live and close them with a 3-needle bind off, and here in the side. That's something I would modify if I repeated this, because I was increasing, right? This has waist shaping, so you start with a smaller amount of stitches and you increase to get to the bust size, and they had edge stitches in the original to sew, right? You will sew 2 of them, 1 of each panel, and you will still have a little column with 2 of them, which will then be a reference. Like, it won't be so weird as it is here, you know. The pattern is coming from nowhere, but no one will be looking under my arm most of the time, so I don't mind so much. But if I were to make it again, I think I would keep at least 1 of the columns in each panel, so 2 stitches. I think it was garter, to make this reference and to obliterate the weirdness of that part. Other than that, I love this. I didn't have to modify that much. I have modified the amount of decreases here, but not by much. And also here, the rows I made to decrease here. And also the neckline was originally a triangle. It was a triangle because they would decrease in the middle here, the kind you do with v-necks. You do a double decrease here, so it was like a rounded triangle. You can see in the picture here, I guess. Here you can see under here, you see here the neckline, a rounded triangle kinda. And I decided it was already rounded, so instead of making the double central decrease, I decided to make it a scoop neck by starting with a larger needle and going down, down, down. I think I made 4 3/75, 3.5. Another modification, but that was accidental, was the 1x1 ribbon. It was supposed to be 2x2, but I didn't see it in the pattern, and I started with 1x1. I had already knitted a bit. When I saw it was 2x2, then I decided I just do the others to match. And also, I think I default to 1x1 because it's easier to make the sewn cast on, which I made. Sewn cast on, sewn by Doff and everything, also deviating from the pattern, but I don't even think they specify the cast on or cast off, so yeah. I like those old patterns because sometimes, since you're going to have to modify it anyway, you'll feel more freedom to do it. The intention behind them, at least the Brazilian ones, was to be more of a broad guideline, not something you had to follow to a T. And yeah, folks, oh, this is so warm. I went to the city of Curitiba with my boyfriend a couple of weeks ago, and it was very cold. We got like 0 degrees there, and this saved me. This is very warm and nice, and that's why I was wearing it today here. I washed it a couple times since I finished it, one of them for blocking, the other after the trip because I was wearing it all the time. And it's just good smelling, nice fitting. It's not merino wool, it's not like the softest wool, but it's great for a vest. It doesn't bother my skin. Of course, unhappily, it's a very, very discontinued yarn, but it was fulfilling of one of my knitting dreams. So yeah, folks, let's finish it. Let's wrap it up because I think I have more than 1 hour footage. I hope you enjoyed spending this time with me. Tell me, what have you been doing? Have you been knitting, sewing, crocheting? Have you been doing other crafts? Have you been away from crafts and busy with your personal life too? And I hope to come back next week. I will show you in just a second how much I am not talking to you about today. Yeah, this much of stuff. Yeah, a lot of sewing related stuff. I brought, for example, my sewing patterns and also a magazine. I think there is a magazine in here. And I don't know what else, but I was going to talk to you about this and wasn't able to. I was going to talk to you about this, which was my latest acquired vintage material. And I didn't even bring here the sewing materials and I think one knitting acquisition I had So I hope to come back next week or in the other. I hope not so much later. Have a great week. Good crafting. I'm so glad to talk to you again, and welcome to all the new folks. Feel at home around here. Look around, ask me anything in the comments, in the community tab, wherever you want. In my Ravelry project, go around, check out, add me in Instagram, whatever you want. I love to meet new knitters and sewists. Some people who are also starting their sewing journey right now. Add me, talk. I want to know, because I want to share soon enough the difficulties of a beginner sewist. If you're also starting your sewing journey this year, drop your best advice for beginners and what to pick, how to pick patterns. I've been watching videos about it, but yeah, let me wrap it up. Otherwise, I won't be able to wrap it up and I won't be able to post it. Be happy, be healthy, happy knitting, happy sewing, happy crocheting, happy everything, and I see you in the next one. Bye bye.